Why can't the mainstream media stop lying, spreading fear, and spreading hopelessness?
In terms of the happy talk we've had on this front from the federal government, there is no sign that the Navy hospital ships that the president made such a big deal of, the Comfort and the Mercy, there's no sign that they'll be anywhere on site helping out anywhere in the country for weeks yet. The president said when he announced that those ships would be put into action against the COVID-19 epidemic, he said one of those ships would be operational in New York Harbor by next week. That's nonsense. It will not be there next week.
The Comfort has arrived in New York and is now making its way up the river. I'm on the west side, right around Houston Street, not far from where we work, and it's being led in a parade of tugs and Coast Guard vessels, helicopters circling above.
U.S. Navy hospital ship Mercy is now docked at the port of L.A.
After lying and spreading nonsensical theories like she always does, she hopped on Twitter to start fear-mongering again, saying Trump again touts unproven drugs for coronavirus. I read it. It's a horrible article trying to demonize President Trump for talking about chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, the malaria drug that many doctors have been prescribing. And despite it being untested, and yes, you could say it's unproven, it's been having phenomenal results, and doctors and studies are already starting to report on that. If you remember my video last week of the media fear-mongering saying, oh my goodness, somebody took chloroquine because President Trump told them to and died. That was a woman whose husband ingested fish cleaner or fish treatment. We've now found out that that woman who ingested fish tank cleaner is a prolific donor to Democratic causes. Who would have thought somebody smearing President Trump for eating fish cleaner just so happens to be a Democrat who hates President Trump? The lies, delusion, and fear-mongering just never seem to end. Speaking of which, what spreads fear more than turning the Empire State Building into an Orwellian, villainous alarm system to scare the living you-know-what out of the entire city? Really creepy stuff. Where's Batman when you need him? And before I move on, I just want to say I'm not downplaying the virus. I do think it's bad. I do think it's hitting New York and a lot of the world very hardly, and it should be taken seriously. And this is exactly why I make these videos, because we can't have a mainstream media that is the boy who cried wolf, and then when they do say something, nobody wants to believe them because they can't stop lying. I've been talking to nurses, first responders, and firefighters in the New York City area, and they've been telling me, yes, it is getting crazy. There is a lot of work in a lot of the hospitals, and in a lot of ways they're getting overwhelmed and they're running out of masks, reusing masks. It's not a great situation that's going on, and yes, it could get worse. And one thing that I did hear too is a lot of people are getting scared and going to the hospital because they think they have it because they're watching too much media. That's also not good, because not only are you now taking time and resources away from more needy people, but you're also putting yourself in harm's way more than you would have been if you just stayed to yourself. But at the same time, we shouldn't throw out our critical thinking skills, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So today, CNN finally admitting what I've been talking about for weeks. They're a little bit behind, but that's okay. The coronavirus death rate is lower than previously reported, study says, but is still deadlier than the seasonal flu. CNN went on to say that the research published in the medical journal The Lancet Infectious Diseases estimated that about 0.66 of those infected with the virus will die. It's good that CNN is finally reporting that the death rate is probably lower than what they originally fear-mongered about in many of these institutions and on many of these media programs, because earlier in March, Science Alert quoted The WHO saying the coronavirus global death rate is 3.4%, higher than earlier figures of 2%. Of course, those estimates would be 20 to 40 times as deadly as the flu, which is a lot different, but that's what the WHO said publicly. And of course, these figures were never explaining what I've explained, why the death rate is lower now, because the more tests that go out, combined with the fact they're telling people not to get tested if they're asymptomatic, means that the death rate is obviously going to be massively inflated. And the more you hand out tests, and the more you consider the tens of thousands, if not millions of people who have it and don't even know they have it because their symptoms are mild, of course the death rate's going to go down. So once again, the scientific experts and trusted media are a week behind what we've been speculating here. And how settled is this science? Well, the World Health Organization said, fact, COVID-19 is not airborne. So they're saying it's not airborne. Interestingly enough, you'll see articles coming out today that a new study says scientists find evidence that coronavirus COVID-19 is airborne. According to a new joint study that was released over the weekend by the University of Nebraska Medical Center, the National Strategic Institute at the University of Nebraska, and others, researchers found evidence to suggest that SARS-CoV-19 is airborne. And in that study, it says the paper states air samplers from hallways outside of rooms where the staff was moving in and out of doors were also positive. So the WHO says not airborne, other scientists say is airborne. And let's just remind you, in January, the WHO, the World Health Organization, said COVID-19 was found to be not transmittable from human to human because the Chinese authorities said so. So not only is the science not settled, not only have the death rates lowered, fluctuated, and these trusted global health organizations proven to be wrong time and time again, disagreeing with top scientists. So the quick point I'm trying to make is the science is not settled, and a lot of these experts that they talk about aren't always as correct as they may portray themselves to be. That's why being humble and humility is very important in science. It's not an egotistical experience to claim that you know it all when you know that you don't. On that note, what do we know? Small businesses, big businesses, jobs, salaries in this country are being crushed due to government mandated shutdowns. Market Insider says 32% unemployment and 47 million out of work. The Fed just issued an alarming forecast for the next quarter as the coronavirus continues to spread. So once again, I'm not downplaying the virus. I do think it's serious. I understand we have to take certain precautions. But at a certain time, Ben Franklin warned us, or at least they claim this quote was from him, who knows if it's really real, that those who trade liberty for security will soon have neither. So this needs to be talked about without saying, oh, you just want to help the big businesses and Boeing. Oh, you don't care about lives. We've never seen a recession like we're about to see. Businesses being shut down by the government. This is crazy stuff. This is authoritarianism in the craziest sense. Our founding fathers knew about deadly pandemics and plagues, but they didn't include it in the Constitution. So it's worth discussing, especially when the death rate keeps lowering and lowering by the experts and they keep contradicting with each other, and we're not even quite sure when the virus got here in this country. So we're taking drastic measures into something that keeps fluctuating. Let's move on. There's a reason I'm talking about this stuff. It's not to deny science. It's not to downplay the virus. It's to use our critical thinking skills as American and world citizens to figure out what the heck is going on and what measures we should really take and put up with. Anthony Fauci said the other day that he anticipates another U.S. coronavirus outbreak in the fall. So despite the measures we're taking, we're gonna probably see it in the fall, says these top experts. And he then basically alludes to hopefully we have a vaccine by then and a lot of people can be covered. And speaking of vaccine and what other experts and politicians think, it's not really hard to see what Bill Gates and Barack Obama think about this because they both tweeted the same article. And that article is The Atlantic, How the Pandemic Will End. The U.S. may end up with the worst COVID-19 outbreak in the industrialized world. This is how it's going to play out. You see the syringe there. And if you want to know these people's end game, all you have to do is read this article and go down to the chapter Endgame. It's written like a sci-fi novel. In the endgame, they have multiple scenarios, but the last one that they talk about and harp on the most is the vaccine. And it says right here, quoting this article, whether through accumulating herd immunity or the long-awaited arrival of a vaccine, the virus will find spreading explosively more and more difficult. It's unlikely to disappear entirely. The vaccine may need to be updated as the virus changes, and people may need to get vaccinated on a regular basis. So they even include our herd immunity, our immune systems, and our natural body may fight this virus off like a lot of other viruses, or it may be the vaccine, is what they're saying. But if you want to talk about science and facts, let's look at the science and facts behind the flu vaccine, which they're saying this will be similar to in the sense of we need to get it every year to fight off the virus. January 6, 2020, U.S. on track for one of the worst flu seasons in decades. So despite the fact that the United States is getting more flu vaccines than ever over the last 5 years or so, we're still on track for one of the worst flu seasons in decades. What else do we know about the flu vaccine? Well, here's live science. This year's flu shot doesn't match what's circulating. Here's what that means. The strain in the vaccine may still be close enough to offer some protection. There's more bad news about the flu, they say. The mainstream of flu that's circulating right now doesn't exactly match what's in this year's flu shot. So as Dr. Fauci tells you that COVID-19 is probably going to come back in the fall, they say the vaccine will hopefully take care of that. They're also telling you in the media this year's flu was one of the worst ones we've ever had, and the vaccine wasn't even the right strain that's going around. All stuff to think about. I'll let you do your own thinking. I don't want to think for you. On that note, I just want to crunch a few more numbers. It's not just the big corporations suffering or the big stockholders, it's millions of Americans. Not only their 401ks, their job, their salary, their small business. We're witnessing a recession/depression we've never seen before because we've never seen the government literally shut down almost every entire industry and not let you open up. Despite the fact that they don't truly know the death rate, which they're now admitting it's fluctuating. I'm not downplaying the virus. I do think it's bad. I want to save lives. But this looks like there's an agenda at hand, and it definitely looks like a global overhaul of systematic control. That's my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section. Let's work together to save lives, absolutely, but let's also try to figure out what might happen if we give government all the power, all of our business resource, not allow us to open up, when they could find out in 5, 6, 7, 8 months that the virus was here longer, or herd immunity or other scientifically proven stuff might have been the same solution or better or slightly worse. I'm not saying I know, but this needs to be talked about, because just sitting back and letting the government run your lives for months or years at a time is not going to cut it in the free land of United States of America. And two things I want to throw out there real quick. One, I don't understand why they're destroying millions of rural businesses in rural states. Meanwhile, if you live in New York City, you could still pretty much just get on a plane and fly to any other city and then drive to these rural towns. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand how we're half in, half out doing this. And also, is it a possibility to buy everybody in the United States a nice mask and a nice jumpsuit, and we could all get back to work in hazmat suits or something? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that's the solution, but I don't understand how this social distancing is really working. That's my thoughts. God bless you guys. I'll be back with more videos.